What's up, guys? TwoTenEast here. Appreciate you tuning in. Hope you're all doing well out there. I'm back with my Modern Love review series. I know these videos weren't exactly getting a lot of views, but I'm a small channel and I think at least 2 of you requested that I continue this series, so that's good enough for me. Quick disclaimer though, I am going to reformat it a little bit. I really don't feel like watching every other episode and doing reviews for each one. So what I'm gonna do is take episodes 4 and 5, which I had pretty much done the groundwork for already before I stopped doing the series, make them into one video, 2 for 1 special, and then I'll do one more video after I've completely watched all the other episodes and do a kind of overall review and my thoughts looking back on the show as a whole. Also, I'm going to change up the format for the videos themselves. I'm not going to be recapping the entire story scene for scene. I'm just going to pretty much lay out the groundwork and then get right into my analysis. Alright, so with that being said, I hope at least the 2 of you who requested this video series to continue and anybody else who sees this enjoys. And yeah, let's get into this review of episodes 4 and 5. And finally, we've arrived at the first episode not directed by John Carney. Instead, the reins have been handed over to Sharon Horgan, who wrote and directed this episode titled Rallying to Keep the Game Alive. Aside from writing on a lot of other projects, Sharon Horgan is probably best known for being an actress. A lot of you probably recognize her from the show Catastrophe. Anyways, she does a pretty good job here, and while it's not some drastic contrast to John Carney's direction, I still have to say this was my favorite episode so far. Alright, so first things first, we need to address the acting in this episode. I'm not talking about the ancillary characters. I'm not talking about Ted Allen. This entire episode was carried on the backs of Tina Fey and John Slattery. And as the episode went on, it shifted more so onto Tina Fey's back, with John Slattery giving her refreshments and massages. John Slattery is still really good in this episode too, but the reason Tina Fey outshines him in the end is more a result of the episode and the narrative itself, and less a result of him not being as good of an actor. For those of you who love Tina Fey and maybe don't know John Slattery's work, I would point you in the direction of Mad Men, which is, I don't know, just one of the greatest television series of all time, and let Slattery's resume in that show speak for itself. Okay, so now that we've acknowledged the acting, let's get to some other points. So the game of tennis in this episode is very clearly a metaphor for this couple's marriage. It's established as the episode develops, and of course it's not the first time that this metaphor has been used in TV and film, but it's still done well here. When they first begin playing, Sarah and Dennis are arguing all the time. Sarah wants to just play a normal game and play by the rules, which of course represents her thoughts on marriage and relationship dynamics. And Dennis says the rules get in the way of having fun, which of course represents his own philosophy on marriage and life. Sarah says it's not about winning, it's about playing, and yeah, you get the idea. Then the metaphor continues and grows as the kids take part in it as well, representing the stage of marriage when kids come into the picture, and how it's raising them that matters most. Then we see at the end, when they have come to terms with their marriage and their relationship, it manifests onto their play on the court. They show up in legit tennis outfits, they look like real tennis players now, they stretch, they warm up, they take it seriously, and when they play, they still play hard, but they respect each other and don't get mad when they mess up or the other person scores points. So this space of the tennis court, which was at first kind of like a battleground, now has become a therapeutic space where they connect and acknowledge the game of their marriage. And then we have that line of Dennis going, "You want to keep playing?" And Sarah goes, "Yes." "You want to keep being married? You want to keep doing this marriage thing?" "Yes." Okay, great. The therapy sessions are another kind of battleground or game being played in this episode, and it's interesting that on the tennis court, at least at first, it's Dennis who cares about winning too much, and Sarah who's like, okay, fuck it, I'm out of here whenever he gets all competitive. But in the therapy sessions, it's Sarah who seems more concerned about winning or scoring points, and Dennis who seems a little more laid back. So therapy session scenes in film and TV in general, especially couples therapy, are very easy to get wrong. They can easily end up seeming forced and melodramatic. But Tina Fey and John Slattery are just so fucking good that it's just so believable and natural feeling. I really believed them as a couple, and I felt their frustrations and emotions. This brings me to the scene where the fan approaches Dennis and discusses his role in a show that he was in. The fan talks about how believable his character's relationship was with another character, and she was rooting for them all the way. And here we have some more decent meta commentary, a play within a play moment. Basically, the fan's conversation with Dennis is really a reference to the actual episode itself, the marriage of Dennis and Sarah, the acting of John and Tina, and their ability to make these characters believable and make us, the audience, want to root for them. Perhaps even the fan saying that the relationship has run its course and that the audience wants something new is a reference as well to the anthology format, an acknowledgement that as believable as this marriage, this acting performance, this storytelling was, we're going to move on to new characters and a new story in the next episode. It makes sense then that this scene was foreshadowed by the scene of the son and his play. It signals and puts in the mind of the audience the play within a play dynamic. Also, again, Tina Fey just kills it in this scene. That fan gets absolutely mollywopped. Just great stuff. Alright, on to episode 5. So this will be the second episode that is not written or directed by John Carney. Instead, Tom Hall is behind the wheel. Literally have never seen or heard of anything he's been a part of, so I was completely unbiased going into this episode. The stars of this episode are John Gallagher Jr. Hey, it's Liam from Westworld. You might also recognize him from other movies like Hush, 10 Cloverfield Lane, and Short Term 12. His co-star is Sophia Boutella, who you might know from Kingsman, Star Trek Beyond, or Atomic Blonde. So unfortunately, this episode was yet another, in my opinion, mediocre, lukewarm episode. Wasn't bad, wasn't great either. I think some of the emotional hits that Modern Love is trying to land, they're just not landing with me. And don't get me wrong, I love getting in my feels. I love getting emotional. I love emotionally charged stories, movies, TV shows. It's just a subjective thing. It's just not hitting with me in most of these episodes. So anyways, this episode focused on a couple different themes and issues. First was this theme of people putting on fronts in life, trying to appear a certain way to others and hiding or protecting their true selves at their most vulnerable. Rob's accident cuts through all of this front. Instead of all of their most intimate secrets being slowly revealed over time, they are brought close together in a very short amount of time through this interlude at the hospital. If you think about the fact that they were about to have sex before Rob's incident happens, it's interesting to compare these two versions or ideas of intimacy. Sex is something that can obviously be considered very intimate, but this whole trajectory that Rob's accident sends the two of them on actually leads them to grow closer than they might have been if they just had sex and then, I don't know, whatever, just said goodbye in the morning. During the time at the hospital, Yasmin sees Rob at his most vulnerable, and so in turn she feels more comfortable telling him things about her that are intimate and personal. There's that scene where she uses the toilet right in front of Rob, and this is something you only do if you feel really comfortable around somebody. And it almost sort of reminded me of marriage, like they're this old married couple already that's been together for years. Or maybe it's just part of Yasmin's character being like earthy. So aside from this general theme of our tendencies as social beings to put up fronts and prevent ourselves from being vulnerable and how that can all be torn away under the right circumstances and so on, there is also a dynamic that comes out of that, which is specific to these two characters. Rob has an anxiety disorder, while Yasmin, well, I'm not actually exactly sure if she has a clinical condition, and I don't want to offend anyone by trying to guess. If any of you have an idea about what she might have, let me know. But anyways, basically she is obsessed with other people's perception of her. During the episode, she is constantly posting things about their date on Facebook and also live blogging about it. She's even obsessed with the number of likes and comments she gets, and she admits all of this to Rob as well. She feels like she needs to manipulate people to get attention from them and get them to like her or desire her. Like I said, I don't know exactly what condition that would fall under, but what I can say is both of their conditions or issues seem to be ones that could easily be mistaken as things everyone deals with. What I mean by this is that in Rob's case, his anxiety is something that a lot of people today confuse with just feeling anxious or stressed or nervous, something everyone experiences from time to time. There is a difference between somebody who just feels anxious and experiences anxiety in their life and someone who actually has an anxiety disorder. With Yasmin, it seems like she might also have a condition that has symptoms or characteristics that are relatable to people without it. I mean, I think most of us would agree that we all, to some extent, care what others think of us. But that doesn't mean that Yasmin doesn't have a serious issue which goes beyond these relatable tendencies we might all have. It's interesting to think about her character and social media in relation to the theme of putting up a front and getting to know people better through being seen at their most vulnerable. Even during the experience she has with Rob at the hospital, even during all of this intimate personal connection and sharing of experiences and information, the entire time she is fucking live blogging and posting about it. And that takes away from the actual experiences. It's like she just uses it to appear a certain way to others online. Rob deals with the same problem, but in a different way. His anxiety fogs, as he calls them, take away from his experiences because his anxiety prevents him from being in the moment as well. So we have these two people that have trouble being in the moment and being present, and for this brief interlude, they are brought together and can experience something real together. So then there's this game they play throughout the episode. This either or game. Facebook or Twitter, this or that. And the point of the game is you have to choose between one or the other. And this kind of reminds me of episode 3 with Anne Hathaway's character Lexi and her battle with being bipolar. Most things you'll encounter in life, whether it be obstacles, your relations with other people, won't be black and white. They won't be simple either or choices. Instead, there is a vast gray area where most of life takes place. With Lexi in episode 3, she was trying to live life in black and white, either depressed and shut down or living in a personal musical complete with backup dancers. In the end, she found this middle ground or gray area, and it feels a little similar in this episode. Rob says during the bathroom scene that it feels like they have fast-forwarded many years in their relationship, as if, like I said before, they are already a married couple. And yet, even though they shared this intimate and strange night and came together in a short amount of time, cutting through a lot of the front each of them had up, in the end, they still aren't married. They still don't know each other that well, and that's okay. It's not black and white. It's not either they're strangers or they're like an old married couple and live happily ever after. They are somewhere in between. The audience isn't given a conclusion to their relationship, and instead they are left with an ambiguous shot of sunlight through branches. Maybe the message here is that the ambiguous ending is an invitation to the audience to participate in the game Rob and Yasmin were playing the entire episode. It's up to you. Rob and Yasmin live happily ever after, or they fizzle out and never see each other again. On the other hand, it could be a rhetorical question, meaning maybe we shouldn't pick. Maybe we are being told that we don't need to pick between one or the other to feel satisfied. Maybe we can just bask in that gray area and maybe blog about it every once in a while. Again, this episode was cool. The emotional stuff wasn't really hitting too much for me, but I did find the larger commentary and themes to be pretty interesting. Alright, that's going to do it for this video. Be on the lookout for the last video where I'm just going to talk about the show as a whole after I've finished all the other episodes. This is TwoTenEast. I love you guys forever and ever.